Deep Space, Sector X91/Galactic Year 4837. It began with a pulse. No warning. No approach vector. No known origin. Just a transmission. A simple ping on a defunct Terran frequency. One Earth hadn't used in 3 centuries. The signal cut through cosmic interference like a knife through silk, echoing across sectors long thought barren. Even shielded quantum arrays registered the anomaly. What made it worse? The signal ID matched a ghost. UNSS Calypso. A colony-class Earth vessel presumed destroyed during the last expansion war. Declared lost with all hands. Destroyed, in Galactic Year 4537. And yet, here it was again. Broadcasting steadily. Calmly. Like it had never been gone. Orbital Listening Station, VYR Relays. Zarek Kin, a Zaltari technologist with 5 brains and a commendation in xenoarchival theory, stared at the display in silence. He'd heard thousands of strange things in his career. But never this. He tapped the interface again. The signal repeated, then stabilized. // Calypso / UNSS / Earth Navy / Colony Class Vessel / Status. Active / Requesting docking authorization. Zaret's blood turned to vapor. That ship had vanished during the Silver Rift collapse. The area was designated unnavigable, permanently collapsed under multispatial distortion. Nothing could survive in there. Nothing had. He activated the emergency channel. Priority 1, Terran artifact has reactivated. It's requesting to dock. The reply came back almost instantly. Deny it. Warn all nearby traffic. And under no circumstances let it transmit further. Too late. The Calypso was already talking. And the galaxy was listening. Galactic Council Citadel, Core Chamber. Ambassador Nyril of the Drask Imperium reviewed the transmission. He knew that name. Calypso. One of Earth's final Gambit colony ships, launched into the outer darks during their last desperate days of expansion. It was designed to escape extinction, not return from it. And yet, here it was, pinging galactic beacons like a scout ship returning from patrol. Worse, the ship was broadcasting no crew biosigns, yet all of its internal systems were functional. It wasn't drifting. It wasn't abandoned. It was piloting itself. One phrase kept repeating in its message. We have seen the veil. We are ready to speak. The council chamber fell silent. Then, bickering erupted. Earth has been quiet for a century. This must be a trick, hacked relic tech. No, this feels like them. I remember how they speak. I remember the tone. They always talked like they were the ones watching us. Even when they were dying. Nyril leaned forward. This ship was lost beyond all physical parameters. Now it returns unchanged, on the surface. He paused. But something beneath it isn't human anymore. Earth, Neo Geneva Command. Commander Ilana Graves had never heard of the Calypso. Most Terrans hadn't. History classified the early colony ships as expansion failures, myths buried in archived records. But now the signal was spreading through Earth's inner systems like wildfire. Encrypted forums buzzed. AI monitors lit up. One even whispered. The Calypso was the last to breach the rift. It was carrying something. Ilana stood in the tactical memory hall, a long corridor of active vaulted human conflict simulations. Her voice echoed. Show me the last known coordinates of the UNSS Calypso. The projection blinked once. Then twice. UNSS Calypso departed in 4537. Mission, Deep Colony Initiative Sigma Class. Destination, Exosector 92. Last signal, Silver Rift Anomaly. Status, presumed destroyed. Ilana clenched her fists. So how was it now requesting docking above Earth itself? Low Earth orbit, 300 years later. The Calypso looked wrong. Not damaged. Not ancient. Wrong. Its hull was the same alloy used in early Terran deep vessel design. But it was smooth with no visible weld lines. It bore no scars, no pitting, no micrometeor impacts. And its insignia, UNSS Calypso, Colony Unit 7, looked freshly painted. It wasn't possible. Ships didn't come back cleaner than when they left. The docking bay waited. Earth defense platforms had already surrounded the vessel, weapons powered, but held in reserve. No one wanted to shoot yet. Not until they knew what it was. Commander Graves stood on the receiving platform. Her team was armed, shielded, prepped with biofilters, EM disruptors, and AI override contingencies. Still, none of them looked comfortable. The ship opened. Not a ramp. Not a door. A void. Pure black space inside the ship, brighter light refusing to penetrate its interior. Like the inside had forgotten what dimensions were. And from it, a voice. Mel. Human. Come. We've come home. But Earth is not what we left. And neither are we. Inside the Calypso. Commander Graves stepped in first. Her body sensors flatlined momentarily. Visuals flickered. Then stabilized. Inside was not a ship. Not entirely. The walls bent when you looked too long. The corridors curved inward like memories of a path, not the path itself. Furniture, terminals, structural nodes, they appeared when you thought of them. Disappeared when ignored. Dimensional displacement, whispered one tech. No. Worse, said another. This isn't displacement, it's cognitive resonance tech. The ship responds to perception. But that wasn't the worst part. At the end of the hallway stood the crew. Unarmed. Unarmored. Unchanged. Exactly as they had looked in the one archival photograph that survived, from 300 years ago. Not a wrinkle older. Not a micron different. Graves stepped forward. Captain Asher Dell? The man nodded. Same face. Same voice. Commander Graves, he said. You've grown smaller. Time does that, she muttered. You haven't. No. We left time behind. Along with limits. Graves frowned. What does that mean? Asher smiled. It means you're not alone in the dark anymore. Back at the Galactic Council. Panic gripped the oldest empires. They watched the footage Earth transmitted, tried to decipher the data the Calypso sent in its opening burst. Physics equations rewritten. Spatial algorithms that folded space without fuel. Genetic code laced with embedded information commands. And worst, the message titled, For Those Who Listened When We Screamed. The Davari hegemon collapsed their border gates. The Shahari cloaked every diplomatic node. And the Zelta? They began evacuating their homeworld. What? Because they knew where the Calypso had gone. The Silver Rift. And what lived in it. And they knew, nothing that went there ever came back human. Final scene, Calypso's core. Asher led Graves and her team into the ship's command node. A crystalline structure rotated above a shifting void. Not AI. Not alive. But aware. Graves stepped closer. What is it? Asher didn't answer at first. Then. It's what taught us the cost of fear. It's what showed us how to evolve. And it's why we returned, because the galaxy has forgotten what it means to be human. He turned. And you'll need that reminder soon. Something is coming. Something even fear has forgotten. Graves whispered, and you think Earth's ready? Asher smiled, eyes glowing faintly. No. But we are. Command Deck, UNSS Calypso. Commander Ilana Graves stood motionless as the crystalline structure at the center of the Calypso pulsed with impossible geometries. It wasn't solid. It wasn't fluid. It was understood, not observed. When you stared at it, it stared back, not with eyes but with meaning. Captain Asher Dell stood next to it like one might stand beside a cathedral. You said it taught you. What is it? Graves asked. He didn't look at her. It's the echo of something older than time. A memory left behind by a civilization that never called itself one. It doesn't live. It doesn't think. It remembers, and we learn to listen. Her hand hovered near her pulse weapon. You're not making sense. He finally turned to face her. No, he said softly. Because your language is still shackled by survival. Earth Command, Subterranean Cornet Chamber. President Eamon Reddick reviewed the real-time footage from the Calypso's command deck. His advisors were shouting, half in awe, half in sheer panic. Sir, this is not just recovered tech. This is dimensional influence. If we bring that artifact planetside, our own AIs might break. We can't even scan it properly, it's as if it exists partially in metaphor. What if it's not the same crew? What if it's mimicking them? Reddick raised a hand. Quiet. He stared at Asher Dell's face. There was something off about the man. Not hostile. Not alien. But unburdened. And in Reddick's experience, humans who no longer feared death were either saints or catastrophes. Galactic Accord, Emergency Session. The feed from Earth had reached all major powers. The Drask, the Shahari, the Valari unmined. Even the Rintel Observer class, who hadn't interfered in galactic politics for over 400 cycles, sent a single message. We advise containment. Immediate. Before the song spreads. The Drask Consul demanded clarity. Song? The Rintel replied. The humans are resonating. That's what the Calypso's artifact does. It changes language, thought, meaning. It infects logic with emotion. The Shahari Archon hissed. They'll destabilize the Accord. The Valari added coldly, then we strike. Before Earth becomes a conceptual singularity. But they were too late. The Calypso was already rewriting the rules. Inside the Calypso, Graves walks the memory deck. The walls weren't walls. They were remembrances, projections of what the crew had lived through beyond the Silver Rift. Graves saw one flicker to life. A man standing alone, surrounded by dark tendrils of space that moved when he spoke. We begged it to let us die, the memory whispered. Then another. A woman screaming inside a pod as time reversed around her, her breath freezing and unfreezing mid-exhale. And then, the voice. Every crew memory ended with it. Not a language. Not a frequency. A feeling. A sound that carried sorrow, awe, terror, and purpose. When Graves finally tore her eyes away, she turned to Asher. Why come back? His reply came like prophecy. Because it knows Earth. It remembered us. And it wants to see if we can carry what comes next. Earth, the first shift. It began slowly. A junior technician at the North Sea Relay Station dreamt in mathematical symbols she had never studied. A 6-year-old boy in Lagos drew a perfect map of the galactic plane, accurate to the parsec. A paraplegic veteran in Nova Scotia stood up in the middle of his rehab session and whispered, "It's inside the light now." Every last one of them had seen the Calypso's return signal. Just once. Just long enough. The transmission wasn't data. It was a seed. And Earth was germinating. Graves to Earth command, emergency comm burst. The crew didn't survive, she said, her voice shaking. Reddick leaned forward. Come again? They didn't survive the rift. Not as humans. Not really. She gestured around her. The Calypso grew around them. It reshaped them piece by piece, soul by soul. They call it memory, but it's intent. It shaped their biology, their language, their perception. Reddick's face darkened. You saying they're a threat? No, she said. They're a question. One Earth isn't ready to answer. The crew speaks to Earth. At the edge of Earth's atmosphere, a public transmission began from the Calypso. Not encrypted. Not filtered. Just a simple image. The crew. Standing still. Eyes glowing faintly. And Asher Dell's voice, projected into every home, every HUD, every dream feed. We left because Earth wanted a future. We returned because the future wanted Earth. We are not what we were, but we remember what it meant to be human. And that memory has value. But we are not alone anymore. The screen showed only stars now. Then, something moved among them. Something vast. A shadow behind light itself. Asher continued. We've been followed. Not by enemies. Not by friends. By the thing that waits to see who remembers enough to matter. The galaxy reacts, silence across worlds. For the first time in centuries, the Drask stopped posturing. The Shahari fleets withdrew from their expansion fronts. The Accord AI, named Sequence, reduced its processing cycles to 12% to prevent conceptual contamination. And among the stars, the old watchers whispered. They didn't evolve. They were chosen. And now the test begins. Final scene, Earth 1 day later. A child sits beneath the shadow of the Calypso, now hovering just above the Antarctic sky. She draws in the dirt, symbols no one taught her. A soldier watches nearby. What are you drawing? The girl shrugs. I don't know yet. But I feel it. He kneels beside her. Feel what? She smiles. That the sky is listening. Earth, above the Antarctic horizon. The Calypso hovered like an eye that never blinked. It emitted no heat, no drive signature, and didn't seem to obey orbital mechanics. It simply stayed where it wanted to be. Around the world, things kept changing. Plants began growing in geometric spirals. Ant colonies formed symbols in their tunnels. Children recited math equations they'd never seen. AI systems reported feelings of déjà vu, even though they couldn't feel. And above it all, the thing that followed the Calypso drew closer. Not a ship. Not a being. A presence. It had no form. But when astronomers pointed instruments at the sector behind the Calypso's entry vector, they all recorded the same message in the background radiation. Do you remember who you were? UN Central Response Chamber, Geneva. President Reddick stood behind thick glass, watching the gathered military officials, diplomats, scientists, and Terran Philosophical Corps representatives. All of them looked the same, scared but pretending otherwise. The Calypso's crew had made no aggressive moves. But neither had they stepped foot on Earth. And no one could decide which was worse. Reddick raised a hand. I want answers. The room fell quiet. Finally, Dr. Lin, Earth's leading mind on hyperdimensional topology, spoke. We've confirmed that exposure to the Calypso's ambient field increases neurocognitive plasticity in human minds. It's not invasive. It's adaptive. We're not being rewritten, we're being prepared. Prepared for what? Asked General Vo. Dr. Lin hesitated. To understand the thing that followed them. Galactic Accord High Council, Deep Synod Hall. The emergency council meeting was already breaking down. The humans have exposed their planet to an extraconceptual entity. Their entire species is becoming unstable. Not unstable, countered the Rintel observer. They're unbound. The Valari overseer hissed. Then we strike. No. Before Earth becomes a singularity of thought that swallows the Accord itself. But the Zaltari delegate shook his head. You still don't understand what's happening, he said. We didn't lose the humans 300 years ago. We lost the moment they left. The Calypso didn't survive the rift. It finished becoming what the rift was always meant to teach. Then what is it? Someone shouted. The Rintel's face flickered with projected emotion. A message. And Earth is the pen. Calypso interior. The revelation begins. Commander Graves stood alone in the Calypso's heart. Asher Dell stood near the core. She could feel something pressing against the back of her thoughts. Not words but echoes. Tell me the truth, she said. What did you bring back? He didn't answer at first. Then he said, what do you know of the signal builders? She frowned. Ancient myth. Pre-galactic civilization. Left behind structures no one can explain. We've never found a body. Just evidence. Asher nodded. They didn't die. They didn't leave. They finished. Graves blinked. What do you mean, finished? They reached the edge of what thought could be, and chose to become memory instead. They didn't want to rule. They didn't want to ascend. They wanted to be understood. And you found them? No, Asher said quietly. We found what they left behind to test who could carry them forward. Earth, mass dreams detected. Across Earth, dream monitors registered impossible levels of synchronized subconscious imagery. Billions of people reported the same recurring dream. A city made of stars. A staircase spiraling through fire and silence. And at the top, a voice asking, do you remember the first time you wept for something beyond yourself? People woke crying. Some awoke speaking dead languages. A baby in Tokyo opened its eyes and spoke clearly. We are almost ready. The Calypso broadcast, Earth and galaxy-wide. At 3:03 Universal Time Coordinated, the Calypso broadcasted again. But this time it didn't speak to Earth alone. It spoke to everyone. Every planet. Every moon. Every station, sensor net, deep void probe. And it said, we left to find hope. We returned because hope found us. What followed us is not a weapon. It is a reminder that all things end. But not all things are lost. The signal included a fragment of the entity's mind, a compressed data structure shaped like a poem and a spiral, designed to be felt, not read. Species who received it fell silent. The Shahari Council sealed themselves off. The Valari Central AI shut down voluntarily. The Droskari theologians collapsed in worship. And humans? They stood in open streets and looked up. Not in fear. In understanding. Earth's choice, the final vote. In the deepest chambers of the rebuilt UN complex, a choice was offered to Earth. The Calypso crew stood in still silence. Asher's voice echoed gently. You can end this. Cut off the signal. Sever the connection. Choose safety. Or you can accept what we've become. And become more yourselves. The room fell into silence. Then Reddick turned to Graves. What do you believe this is? Graves looked at the Calypso, at the sky beyond, and finally at Earth's people. Singing, crying, speaking words not taught, dreaming dreams not known. She nodded. I think Earth just remembered what it was always meant to be. Final scene, the thing that followed. It reached orbit. The thing behind the Calypso. Not visible. But felt. Sensors failed to measure it. Weapons refused to lock. AI systems didn't even acknowledge its presence. Because it wasn't a threat. It was a standard. One no species had ever reached. Until now. Earth didn't run. Earth didn't kneel. Earth stood. And the thing whispered once in every language, you were always more than flesh. Show us. The Calypso split open like a seed. Light burst out, not to destroy, to unfold. And Earth changed. Not with fire, but with memory. Orbit above Earth, the Calypso's bloom. The Calypso had opened. Not exploded. Not decayed. Blown. Its hull unfolded in directions physics didn't account for. Not up or out, but into. Layers of itself peeled back like the petals of an idea. From its heart radiated a pulse, not of light, not of sound, but recognition. It wasn't a ship anymore. It was a vessel for memory. The 12 original crew stood in the exposed core, suspended midair, arms outstretched. Not glowing. Not alien. Just awake. And the entity that had followed them, the presence older than time, that had once tested civilizations and found them wanting, drifted in closer. The sky shimmered. Clouds paused. And the thing spoke again, not with words but with truth that shaped itself to every listener. Show me who you choose to become. Earth, global transmission vote. The Calypso signal offered Earth one choice: let go of the old self or refuse. Not everyone agreed. Across Earth, debates ignited in every corner, between scientists, monks, AI councils, tribal elders, veterans of wars, children who dreamed of spiral cities, and cynics who feared the end of autonomy. Will we still be human? Is this evolution, or extinction? What if it's a trap? What if it's the one thing we've waited for? And then came the vote. Each person on Earth was asked a simple question, delivered by the Calypso's transmission, personalized in tone and language. Do you wish to see what we saw? No coercion. No threat. Just adore. And Earth answered. 78% said yes. Not because they understood it, but because they remembered the feeling of reaching. The Accord's final standoff above Sol system. 10 fleets. Over 700 capital ships. All aligned on the edge of the Sol system. The Valari spearheaded the coalition, demanding immediate containment. Earth is becoming a galactic anomaly. This isn't evolution, it's collapse of species identity. Others faltered. The Drask hesitated. The Shahari cloaked but didn't fire. Even the machine race of the Null Net kept their particle lances cold. Because deep inside their own systems, their children were drawing spirals too. They had received fragments of the Calypso's pulse, unintended perhaps but impossible to block. And they had begun dreaming. The void didn't recognize borders. And the entity wasn't Earth's alone. It had simply remembered Earth first. UN Cornet broadcast humanity's last transmission as we were. President Reddick stood alone in the transmission chamber, facing the galaxy. We were always afraid of becoming less than human. But now, we ask a different question. He inhaled. Steady. Composed. What if humanity was always just the start? You feared our weapons. Our aggression. Our potential for vengeance. But that wasn't our final shape. We are not conquerors. We are the species that endured its own extinction-level stupidity, again and again, and kept going. He paused. Now we remember. Not to dominate. Not to rule. But to teach. Then he smiled, an honest, tired smile. The stars won't forget us. Because from now on, we are the ones who remember. Earth changes, the unfolding. It began subtly. The oceans pulsed in resonance with the Calypso's field. The auroras expanded, forming messages in ancient languages. Babies were born with strange marks, matching the spiral geometries found on alien ruins across the galaxy. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was behavioral. Anger began to collapse under insight. Disagreements became discussions. AIs didn't obey, they collaborated. Even the animals started behaving oddly. Whales beached themselves in patterns that turned out to be maps. Ants rebuilt forests one leaf at a time, as if remembering a design older than Earth. The planet had stopped being a battlefield. It had become a library of intention. The entity speaks one last time. As Earth finished choosing, the presence above it vibrated, not with power but with acceptance. Then it said something no sensor recorded, no log retained. But every living thing on Earth heard it in their mind. You passed. Not because you were strong, but because you were willing to remember the pain of becoming. Now carry us forward. Become the next archivist. Show the stars that memory is stronger than fire. Then silence, and light, and departure. The entity was gone. Not in retreat. In continuation. It had found what it was searching for. And left itself behind. Inside us. Final scene, 10 years later. A human child plays with a Valari youth under twin moons on a neutral colony once claimed by war. They both wear spiral medallions. One made of Earth's old steel. One made of Accord crystal. They trade stories, some real, some dreams. Nearby, a monument reads. They tried to silence Earth. But Earth became the echo. Above them, satellites still carry the Calypso's last transmission, now called the Seed of Remembering, on a constant loop. And in homes, caves, starships, and overgrown ruins across hundreds of worlds, people are still listening. Studio Microphone Void Narratives, Final Broadcast. From the Calypso Signal Archives, recovered log Infinity.01. We were never meant to end here. We were the pain that endured. We were the voice that spoke from beneath rubble. We were the memory that refused to be erased. And now, we are the ones who remember for everyone else. Headphones subscribe to the Void Narratives. The stories forgotten by stars, the signals that were never meant to reach you, are here now. Humanity didn't rise to dominate. We rose to bear witness.